That videotape is very hard to explain. Good evening, I'm Warwick Moss. The death of a loved one is always a tragedy. It can scar those left behind for the rest of their days. It's rare for anyone who's lost a husband, wife or close friend to say the bereavement left them a stronger and better person. That's why Elaine Martin's story is so remarkable. She knew her husband Jeff was going to die, had seen how his life would end. A fiery holocaust that no one could have predicted. But Elaine Martin managed to turn the ultimate tragedy into a triumph of the human spirit. Just before 10:30, on the night of August the 22nd, 1978, a massive fuel tanker roars through the darkness of Port Adelaide, South Australia. It's headed for the Birkenhead Bridge. 31-year-old Jeffrey Martin, the father of a young family, is driving toward the same bridge. In 4 days, he's due to celebrate his 11th wedding anniversary. Jeff doesn't know it, but his wife, Elaine, has already bought him a card. It says, "Togetherness. There's nothing like it. Happy anniversary." But in a matter of minutes, that togetherness, that family, will be torn apart by a terrible accident. It was an accident that probably no one could prevent, but it was one Elaine knew was going to happen. Exactly 2 weeks before this night, Elaine had a vivid, horrifying dream.
On Tuesday the 8th of August, I woke up at 6 o'clock in the morning and I was really quite distressed. I was crying and shaking and my heart was racing and my palms were really, perspiring and I'd had this terrible dream, and I actually woke my husband up and I said to him, "I've just had the most awful dream," and I said, "I dreamt you were dead," and he actually thought I was joking and started clowning around until he realised how serious I was. And he said, "What did you dream?" And I said, "Well, all I could see was these huge flames and I could hear you screaming for help." And, we just held each other really closely. I said, "I just don't want to let you go," because it frightened me so much. So we got up and my mother was staying with us because my father was in hospital, and Jeffrey and Mum and I were, basically talking about this dream over breakfast. And, when Jeff went to work, Mum was saying, "Don't be silly, it wouldn't happen." And I guess in my own way I put it out of my mind because it was just too horrible to think about.
As a mother, I naturally said to her, "Oh, don't worry, it's only a dream." And dreams don't very often come true, but this one actually did.
In more ways than one, the marriage of Elaine and Jeff Martin was a match made in heaven. They were devout Christians, cared about their community, and gave it all they could. Jeff is a Sea Scout leader and a basketball coach. In fact, that fateful night, August the 22nd, 1978, Jeff was on his way back from the local competition, driving home as the fuel tanker bore down on Birkenhead Bridge. And the irony is, by rights, Jeff Martin shouldn't have been on this stretch of road at this time. The basketball match he was due to umpire had been called off, so he set out for home an hour earlier than usual. An hour that could have meant the difference between life and death. An hour that could have made Elaine's dream irrelevant.
He he wasn't going to come home from work at all that night. He was working overtime, and then he was going to go straight to umpire basketball. Anyway, he didn't end up working back, so he came home and had something to eat, which I found quite incredible anyway, because we also again got to say I love you and all those special kind of things.
That night, Elaine was edgy. She couldn't sleep. As the night wore on, as Jeff didn't come home, she became more and more frantic. Elaine was convinced something was wrong. She began phoning friends, hospitals, the police. But no one knew where or how Jeff was.
I was waiting for the news to come on the radio, and at that time I heard these cars pull up in a hurry, and I started to walk down the passage, and I remember praying, you know, please God, let him be all right. And then as I opened the door, I could see 2 police cars, and there was this policewoman actually walking up the path towards me, and I just knew he was dead. I could just feel it. I mean, I'd already had this strong feeling that something had happened. A petrol tanker had overturned on the Birkenhead Bridge, and Jeff Wassey had nothing to do with the accident. He was trapped between the bridge railing and the tanker. And, you know, whilst I was actually making phone calls, trying to find out where Jeffrey was, this dream had come back to me, but I pushed it away almost. I didn't want to think about it, but I just knew something had happened. And of course, when I read the paper the next day, it actually said that there were huge flames and the driver could be heard screaming for help. And I knew that what I dreamt had come true.
For Jeff Martin, there was a hero's funeral. The local newspaper seemed to say it all in their headline: "Farewell, Pied Piper." According to Elaine's mother, Edna, it was a fitting tribute. Jeff certainly was one of the best.
If you can say a funeral was beautiful, it was sad, but it was beautiful. And just to think that people loved him so much, and they're the memories that I have. I hold dear.
And for Elaine, even in her deepest depression, memories of her dream provided unexpected strength. She's been able to draw on that spiritual experience to move on and help others, as an author and as a counsellor.
You know, I think the things that I have learnt from my tragedy is that to live each day as though it was the last one you've got. In other words, say I'm sorry, say I love you, say what you can today.
They say that only time can mend a broken heart. To a degree, that's been true for Elaine. In the 15 years since Jeff's death, she's remarried and embarked on a whole new life. But Elaine had more than simply time, her faith and a second remarkable dream. A dream years after the accident, where Jeff appeared to let her know that everything was all right.
He was dressed in his umpire's uniform that he was actually wearing the night he died, and I said to him, how come I know you're dead, but I can see you as I knew you? And he clearly said to me, because that's the way I want you to remember me. I'm happy and I want you to be happy. And up until that point, I regularly had nightmares. And from that night on, I never had a nightmare. And my husband would tell you that it was so noticeable, the change in me. And it was like, I guess I see it like, I believe that God gives to each one of us at some time in our life something that helps us move back on in our grief. We may not be able to see it then. When we look back, we can see something that's happened that's been the turning point. And I think because of the way Jeffrey died, you know, I just needed to see him whole.
I'm just so proud of her the way that she's handled her grief and the way that her children have. And I mean, she even helped us through the grief. And all I can say is, in closing, that I'm a very proud mother of a very wonderful daughter.